Hey y'all, hey. It's your girl Kimmy, your culinary bestie. And I think today's story is about the time I won 20 grand in a cooking show, but only got 7 grand of it after taxes. Scratch that. Before taxes. Sounds crazy, right? That is what today's episode of Between Bites is about. So come join me while I make a little gnocchi. So making gnocchi. So gnocchi is a northern Italian dish. It originated in the villages of Rome. It is what you might call a poor people dish, right? Similar to how polenta is also a poor people dish. Story that another time. But in essence, it was originally just a flour and water dough, a quick and easy way to make something filling and yummy, but it requires a lot of technique, right? And when the Spaniards introduced potatoes to Italy, that was kind of how the potatoes part got added. But it's very simple. I've made it before for my Essential Eats series, but the key is to make sure the dough isn't overworked. No different than any other pasta dish. And gnocchi is an Italian word that means little pillows. So when you look at gnocchi, that's what you're seeing, little pillows. But I chose to make it today because normally I make things that I'm craving, but I wanted to talk about technique and skill and what happens when technique and skill doesn't seem like enough. Oh, this is a potato ricer. You could use a masher. Potato ricer just makes the potato pieces really thin and small so that you're not overworking the dough, right? Picture it. New York City, 2007. Can you tell I like Golden Girls? So, in 2007, I was actually a guidance counselor. For those of you who have known me for a while, or if you're just getting to meet me, I used to do a lot of nonprofit work. The first thing I studied in college was secondary education, and I'd been working for the Y for years. So I went into education initially, and I was working at the time in an alternative high school in the Lower East Side, doing push-in work with a nonprofit organization in the city. And that nonprofit organization, we did a lot of college and career readiness programming. So I was a college and career specialist. And so I worked hand in hand with the Department of Education guidance counselor. So I was a guidance counselor. At that time, I was also a single mom. I'm still a single mom, but my daughter was 4 at the time. And she always used to ask me, I got something on my shirt. She always used to ask me, Mommy, you always talk about my dreams. What's your dream, right? And in this particular instance, she asked me that when I was putting her to bed one night. And I just kind of, because what do you say to a 4-year-old? They're like, well, Mommy, what's your dream? Are you living it, right? So that night, I went to do some lesson plans, and an ad popped up for culinary school. So I ended up going to culinary school. I took it as a sign. I signed up, so I was teaching during the day and going to school at night. Anyway, fast forward. I was at the end of my 2-year program, and I was doing lesson plans again one night, and an ad popped up to apply for Food Network's Chopped. Now, I had not been looking for anything cooking related at that time. I was doing lesson plans on how to determine what to do if you don't want to go to college. And I took it as a sign once again. So I decided to sign up on a whim. I didn't think anything of it. Like I said, I was just finishing culinary school. I had not even done my externship yet, I don't think. And I just really didn't think anything of it. I just decided to apply on a whim. Fast forward again, a couple weeks later, we used to have this office space that we shared as a nonprofit organization. We converted the classroom into an office, and I was getting ready to go to lunch when my phone rang. Now, I have a practice of never answering the phone if I don't know who it is. I just don't. It's not my thing. But this time I was like, you know what, Kim, answer. Pretty sure that was divine intervention and timing. So I decided to answer, and lo and behold, it was the production company for the Food Network, asking me if I wanted to audition, but not for Food Network, for a new show that they were doing for Bravo. And I asked them to hold on. I went into the hallway and I lost it. I was screaming because, what called me back? Are you serious? What? Like, I'm just getting in this game, right? So process to gnocchi is simple but complex at the same time, and it kind of is a good I can't remember if it's allegory or metaphor. Probably metaphor. The word's probably metaphor. It's a good metaphor for the process to being a part of a TV show. So, there are a number of auditions, right? Which I went through. There were like 4 auditions that I went through. And then after those 4 auditions came the waiting period. And the waiting period was a decent amount of time. So, after a while, I said, all right, well, they didn't want me. It was a long shot to begin with, right? So I didn't think anything of it when I didn't hear anything from them. Until one day, my phone rang again. I was at the office again, and lo and behold, the production assistant, very excited. So, chef, do you think you got 4 days that you could book a flight to, we're going to go to LA and we're going to shoot a show. What do you say? And now I'm like full on losing it because what? I've never even been to the West Coast. But I was just really excited, right? And so I talked to my boss at the time. I talked to the principal. Everyone was like, go, 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 go. Really, really excited. And then there was the next part of the process. So I had to call my good friend who's a lawyer. Her and my other friend and I, we had to scrub our socials because they have this thing that they use. It's like a bot, I guess you could say. And the bot, in essence, the bot goes through your social media to see if you have anything that could potentially embarrass the network in there, right? So I scrub. I mean, I was a good girl. Like, I didn't really do a lot, but just had to make sure there wasn't nothing questionable that they could potentially use. And there's a lot of paperwork, NDAs, all those sorts of things. And as I read through the paperwork, I got to the part where there's a clause, and the clause said that in the event that you win the show, but the show doesn't air, you will only receive X amount of dollars for the prize money. So the show was a $20,000 show. And so it meant that in the event I didn't win, I would only receive $7,000 before taxes. So, I paused there, right? And I contacted the production team, the assistant I had been working with the entire time. And I said to her, so what are the odds that this show's not going to air? And she's like, no. Show's been greenlit. Like, you're Gucci. You're good to go. So I'm like, all right. And so off I went. So I ended up not filming in Los Angeles. They decided to film in New York City. I went through the whole process. We filmed for 4 days, no less than 20 hours each day. And at the end of it all, there's a scene where Rocco DiSpirito, very nice guy for the record, he turns, there's 2 champagne glasses, there's 2 people left. No, there's 1 champagne glass, forgive me. There's 1 champagne glass, 2 people left. And what he does is he hands the champagne glass to who the winner is. I was still losing it because I just got to feed Gayle King, and she had called her bestie. We all know who Gayle King's bestie is, right? And I'm like, I just fed Gayle King, and she came in my kitchen for seconds. And I remember the guy who auditioned, but the guy who I was going against in the final, he turns to me, he's like, you know you won, right? And I was just like, I don't know. But in my head, I'm just like, I don't know, Gayle King just came to my kitchen. She might be right? But, I didn't want to jinx it. So when they turned and they handed that champagne glass to me, I was just like, and of course, I couldn't tell anyone what I was doing because I was under NDA. I couldn't even tell my parents what was happening. I could only tell them when I won. So after that, everything was smooth sailing. I remember we had burgers on the roof, and it was 4 a.m, and here I am eating burgers on the roof. And it was great. And then I got an email, I want to say 3 weeks later. First it was to get, to direct me to where my money was going to go. So, I had done that, and I got an email, and the email said, we're really sorry, chef, but the network wants us to make a couple of changes to the format of the show. So this particular show, because it's a pilot, it's not going to air, but don't worry, we'll keep you in mind for future opportunities. And I was just like, wow. Because if you remember, I asked about that, right? And there was nothing I could do, and I couldn't even share it with the world. I asked for clips. I couldn't tell anyone about it. So here I was, and couldn't do anything. So that was that. So now we've moved on. It is a year or so later. I am now working for myself. And I left my job. I'd gotten a couple of new gigs. I was catering. It was great. It was a wonderful time, right? And I get a call from the same production company. And they're like, hey, chef, remember us? We really felt badly about how everything went. Would you be interested in doing a special edition of Chopped? We're doing an all-American episode. Okay.